It wasn't the truck that unsettled me first. It was the silence. Denton's fog always rolled thick in early spring, curling around porches like ghosts reluctant to leave. But that morning, the stillness around our little house felt heavier, like something was waiting to be uncovered. I had just zipped up my old backpack, ready to catch the bus to Greenville, when I looked one last time at the garden I'd built with my own hands. Every daffodil was standing proud, as if reluctant to let me go. "Natalie, your breakfast's getting cold," my mother called from the kitchen. Her voice was strong, but I could hear the tremble in it, the one she always tried to hide when goodbyes crept close. Helen Carter was the kind of woman who worked too hard and loved even harder. Her hands were cracked from years of tilling the earth, repairing old library shelves, and raising me alone since the day I was born. That morning, she was flipping pancakes with military precision, but her eyes never left the window. "You need to eat, sweetheart. It's a long ride." I sat on the edge of the chair, stomach twisted with nerves. "I'm not really hungry." She didn't scold me, just slid the plate in front of me and said, "Then pretend." I took the fork and forced myself to chew. Each bite felt like swallowing gravel. The kitchen clock ticked louder than usual, marking the last quiet moments before everything changed. I glanced at her again. "You still think I shouldn't go?" She shook her head slowly. "I think the city won't go easy on you. But you're right. Knowledge is something no one can take." Her smile wobbled. "Still, you'll be all alone there, Natalie." I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "So were you. And you raised me just fine." Her grip tightened, then let go. 2 hours later, I stood at the Denton bus depot, a peeling brick building that smelled like old diesel and goodbye hugs. The bus wheezed as it pulled up, its windows streaked with last night's rain. Mom repeated her checklist: money in your shoe, don't talk to strangers, text me the second you arrive. I nodded, pretending to memorize it like it wasn't tattooed on my bones. When we hugged, she held on longer than usual. "Everything will be fine," I whispered, though I wasn't sure who I was trying to convince, her or me. The ride to Greenville felt like time stretched itself thin and translucent. I kept my forehead against the cool glass, watching the green fields blur into gray pavement and tall buildings. For 4 years, I had worked 2 jobs, sorting mail at the post office and helping neighbors weed their gardens, to save up for culinary school. I wanted to cook, not just feed people, but make them feel something: warm, cared for, safe. Mom sold our last goat to help cover my tuition. That kind of love sat heavy in my chest. My dorm room was small and smelled faintly of bleach. I shared it with 2 girls, Amber from Charleston and Jessie from a nearby town, who were nice enough but cautious. Like everyone else, we were just trying to survive the first week. Classes were intense. Chef Hammond didn't believe in easy praise or second chances, but I'd waited years for this. I soaked up every minute. I emailed Mom every night, omitting the homesickness and emphasizing the fun. Her replies were always short, filled with weather updates and proud little affirmations that made me tear up in the dark. Then, one Friday, everything cracked. I came back to the room after class to find the bottom drawer of my bed open. My gut clenched. I dropped my bag, reached under the mattress where I'd taped a thick envelope, every dollar I had for the semester, and it was gone. The room spun. My ears buzzed. I yanked every drawer, flipped my pillow, even tore through my backpack in blind panic. Gone. All of it. I staggered into the hallway, barely breathing. At the RA's desk, Mrs. Carlton, a sour woman with a clipboard permanently attached to her arm, just frowned and said she hadn't seen anything suspicious. On the way back, I bumped into a tall guy in a dark hoodie. I muttered sorry and tried to pass, but he stopped me. "Did someone steal your money?" I froze. "How do you know that?" He shrugged. "I saw one of your roommates digging through your bed when you were in class. The one with the pink hoodie. Jessie." I backed away, heart thudding. "Why are you telling me this?" He looked at me evenly. Because it happened to me once. I know what it feels like. Let me help. You can cook dinner for me later as payment. I blinked. The guy was probably a year older, with rough hands and quiet confidence. Ryan Dalton, he added. From upstairs. I hesitated. I'd never trusted strangers easily, but I had no one else. Deal, I said quietly and shook his hand. It was warm, calloused, steady. And for the first time since I'd stepped off the bus, I didn't feel so alone. The plan worked. That same night, Ryan and I waited outside the dorm entrance until Jesse stumbled in from the club, mascara smudged, heels in hand. Ryan stepped forward. We know, he said simply. Jesse's face turned ghost white. No screaming. No theatrics. She just reached into her tote, pulled out the envelope, and handed it to me without a word. I didn't ask for an explanation. I didn't want one. The next morning, she moved out. True to my word, I cooked dinner for Ryan that Sunday. The communal kitchen wasn't much, 2 working burners and a sink that dripped nonstop. But I made rosemary chicken with mashed sweet potatoes and fresh herbs I'd smuggled in from home. Ryan peeled carrots beside me, pretending to know what he was doing. So, where are you from? He asked. Denton. Small town, lots of cows, 0 traffic lights. You? Greenville, kind of. Bourne, just outside it. My mom teaches English at a public school. We talked for hours. About food, about broken families, about childhood Christmases that ended in power outages and laughter. There was an ease to him, like he didn't need to prove anything. When he walked me back to my room, I half hoped he'd reach for my hand. He didn't, but I caught myself wishing he had. Over the next few weeks, we fell into an easy rhythm. Study, cook, crash. He'd stop by after classes, bringing random ingredients like star anise or goat cheese, challenging me to make magic. And I did. Cooking with Ryan was different. He didn't just eat, he watched. Like food meant something deeper. He told me once that engineering was just problem solving, and that cooking, to him, looked like a kind of poetry. By the end of the semester, it felt natural to take the next step. We pooled our money and found a 1-bedroom apartment 15 minutes from campus. It was tiny. The bathroom barely fit 2 people. The oven was ancient, and the heater had a personality of its own. But we made it home. I painted the kitchen walls a buttery yellow. Ryan fixed the loose door handle with duct tape and swore it was temporary engineering. The first night in the apartment, we ordered cheap Chinese food and ate on the floor, our dishes resting on a cardboard box. He clinked his soda can against mine. To surviving Jesse and still trusting people. I laughed. To duct-taped doors and overcooked rice. Then he kissed me. Living together wasn't easy. We argued over dishes, over laundry, over me hogging the bathroom mirror every morning. But we also danced in the kitchen while soup simmered. We made late-night pancakes with too much cinnamon. We built a tiny greenhouse on the balcony, just basil, thyme, and 3 succulents I named after spices. Every morning, we had breakfast beside those plants, watching the sun cut through the green leaves. One chilly afternoon, I found Ryan thumbing through an old photo album. My mom sent it, he said. Said it was time I saw my roots. He flipped to a picture of a young woman in a stiff skirt and pearls. That's her, Sandra Dalton. She looks kind of scary here, but she's cool, strict, logical, very Caroline Ingalls energy. He turned the page. That's my dad. Well, the man I grew up thinking was my dad. Charles Dalton. He left when I was 5. I barely remember him. Just a uniform and long silences. He paused. Sandra never really talked about him much. I guess I just filled in the blanks myself. I froze. Wait, Charles. My breath caught in my throat. My mom said my dad's name was Charles too. Charles Carter. But I never met him. Ryan didn't react right away. He just looked at me. That's probably a coincidence. Charles is a pretty common name, that. I nodded slowly. Maybe it was. But something inside me tugged at the edges of that page, a whisper I didn't want to hear yet. We didn't talk about it again. Instead, we talked about the future. Ryan wanted to open his own contracting company one day. I dreamed of running a farm-to-table cafe with my mom's blackberry pie on the menu. He started calling me Chef Nat whenever I nailed a recipe. I started calling him Fix It Ryan after he unclogged our sink with a hanger and 3 curse words. Life wasn't perfect, but it felt real, honest, earned. And then one evening, as we sipped coffee by the window, Ryan reached for my hand. You know, I could see us living in a real house someday, with a porch swing, maybe even a garden. I smiled, squeezing his fingers. With cows. Only if they cook, he deadpanned. That night, I wrote to Mom and told her about Ryan. Really told her. I even attached a photo of us, sitting barefoot on the apartment floor, spaghetti sauce on my cheek and a grin on his face. I said I wanted her to meet him. Soon. I didn't know that when she saw that photo, something inside her would shift, something tied to a past she had buried so deep it still hurt to look at. It was supposed to be a weekend of introductions, of sunshine and pie and awkward jokes between future in-laws. Ryan and I had been together for almost a year by then, and though we hadn't officially said the words engagement, the thought lingered on our lips like honey we were too shy to taste. I told Mom we were coming down to Denton. I wanted her to meet him. She sounded nervous on the phone, asked for his full name twice. I figured she was just being Mom, protective, practical. The morning we left, Ryan packed the car like he was preparing for a survival trip. Snacks, jumper cables, even a blanket rolled tight in the trunk. Small towns get cold at night, he said with a grin. I kissed his cheek. She's going to love you. He grinned wider. How could she not? I fixed your sink. The drive was long and quiet. Snow clung to the edges of the fields, like lace on a hem. I pointed out landmarks from my childhood, the rusted silo where I scraped my knee chasing fireflies, the pond I once fell into after daring a boy to race across it. Ryan held my hand the whole way. You were a menace, he said. Still am, I whispered, and he laughed. But the moment we turned down our dirt road, something shifted. I sat up straighter, my stomach curling tight. That's weird, I said, pointing ahead. That truck looks just like yours. Parked in front of the gate was a dark blue Ford, identical to Ryan's. Same dent above the left taillight. Same faded bumper sticker that read, measure twice, cut once. That is my truck, Ryan said slowly. My heart thudded. Then whose is that? We pulled in behind it, and before Ryan could get out, the front door opened. A woman stepped onto the porch. Tall, blonde, clean-cut coat buttoned all the way up. Ryan's voice caught. Mom. I turned to him. What is your mom doing at my house? He didn't answer, just followed me up the porch steps. I was halfway through the door when I heard it, my mother's voice, broken and raw, saying something that made my entire body go still. They can't know, Sandra. Not like this. Please, we need to tell them together. My breath froze. I stepped inside. The kitchen smelled like cinnamon and anxiety. My mother stood at the stove, her eyes red and glassy. Sandra, Ryan's mother, was seated at the table, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea that she hadn't touched. Both women looked up at once. Neither smiled. Sit down, both of you, Mom said quietly. We need to talk. We sat side by side, hands still linked. Ryan's knee bounced beneath the table. I had never seen him nervous before. It scared me. I'm going to start, my mother said, her voice tight. Natalie, you've asked about your father for years. I always said he was a soldier, that he left before you were born. That was only part of the truth. I gripped Ryan's hand tighter. His name was Charles Dalton, she said. He served in the same unit stationed near Denton in the early 90s. We were involved. I didn't know he was married. Not at first. I looked at Sandra. Her lips were white. By the time I found out, Mom continued, I was already pregnant. I didn't tell him. I didn't want to wreck his family. I raised you on my own. I never asked him for anything. The room spun. Dalton, I whispered. He was your husband. I turned to Sandra. She nodded. Yes, he was my husband. Her voice cracked. And for years, I told Ryan he was his father. Even I believed it, until I saw you two together and panicked. I thought I had to stop something that wasn't meant to be. I yanked my hand back from Ryan like I'd been burned. No, that can't be. I stood up. My legs trembled. That's not possible. This is a mistake. A cruel, horrible mistake. Ryan's chair screeched as he rose. You're wrong, he told them. You have to be. There's no way. Mom pulled a photo from the drawer. A young soldier stood between two women, one in a pale blue dress, the other my mother. I couldn't breathe. I stumbled outside, snow crunching under my boots, air slicing down my throat like glass. Behind me, I heard Ryan's footsteps. He didn't say anything at first, just stood there, hands shoved in his pockets, breath rising in white clouds. I can't believe this, he said finally. You're the only person who ever made sense, Natalie. And now they say we're not, I whispered. We can't be. He looked at me, eyes full of panic and grief. What do we do now? Pretend the last year didn't happen? Pretend this, he gestured between us, broken and burning, wasn't real. I didn't answer. I couldn't. That night, we didn't sleep. We drove back to Greenville in silence, headlights carving shadows into the snow. He dropped me off at the dorm like I was a stranger. I'll pack tomorrow, I said softly. You keep the apartment. I'll find somewhere else. He nodded once. Okay. I watched his truck disappear down the street before I allowed myself to cry. Everything we had built, the laughter, the love, the shared dreams, it all felt poison now. Like a fire that had burned too hot, too bright, and now left nothing but ash. And yet, something inside me refused to let go completely. Not yet. I barely left my room for days. I skipped class, ignored messages, let cold sandwiches rot in the mini fridge. The world had turned to fog again, but not the soft kind from Denton. This was heavy, choking like betrayal in the air. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Ryan's face, stunned, hollow, retreating. Every time I opened them, I wished I hadn't. Then came the knock. It was gentle, almost hesitant. When I opened the door, I didn't expect to see her. Sandra Dalton stood in the hallway of my dorm building, out of place in her tailored coat and polished shoes, holding a manila envelope like it was something sacred. Can we talk? She asked. I didn't answer, just stepped aside. She didn't sit, just stood by the window, eyes flicking between me and the gray sky. I owe you more than an apology, Natalie, she said quietly. I owe you the truth. I folded my arms, guarding what was left of my dignity. I think we already got that. Loud and clear. No, she whispered. You got a story, but not the whole one. Sandra took a deep breath and opened the envelope. Inside was a DNA test report. This came back yesterday. I wasn't sure if I'd bring it, but after seeing you and Ryan, after seeing what we did to you, I couldn't keep it to myself anymore. I scanned the document. Legal jargon, lab seals, percentages, and then the words that made the world tilt again. Probability of biological relationship, 0%. My knees buckled and I sat down slowly. He's not Charles's son, Sandra said. Ryan. He never was. I blinked. But you said, she nodded, ashamed. I lied, Natalie. Back then, I truly didn't know who Ryan's father was. I told Charles the first was pregnant, hoping it would fix our marriage. It didn't. He left anyway. But I raised Ryan believing it was true, because it was easier than telling him I wasn't sure. And when I saw you two together, I panicked. I thought I had to end it before it became something worse. I made a mistake, Natalie. A one-night mistake when my marriage was falling apart. I told Charles the First was pregnant with his child, hoping it would fix things. It didn't. He left anyway. She walked over, placed the test in my hands. I kept the lie going because it was easier than tearing my son's world apart. And when I saw you with him, so happy, I panicked. I thought I had to stop it before it became something worse. Worse. I snapped. You thought we were siblings. What could be worse? Sandra didn't flinch, tearing down two lives built on something that wasn't even real. But now it's out. And the truth is, you and Ryan are not related. Not by blood. Not by anything. I stared at the paper. I wanted to scream, laugh, collapse. Instead, I asked the only question I could. Does he know? She shook her head. He won't answer my calls. I tried. He shut me out. But maybe he'll listen to you. I took the test from her hands. My fingers trembled. Why now? Because I saw the way he looked at you, Natalie. Like you were the only solid thing in a world that constantly moved. And I realized I would rather risk him hating me than let him lose you forever. Sandra left quietly. I stayed by the window long after she'd gone. The envelope clutched against my chest like a lifeline. Then I moved. It was raining when I got to their apartment. Our apartment, the one I hadn't stepped into since that night. I knocked once, then twice. No answer. Ryan, I called softly. It's me. I need to talk to you. Silence. I tried again. Please, open the door. A beat. Then I heard footsteps. The click of a lock. The door opened just enough for me to see his face. Unshaven, pale, eyes red-rimmed. What are you doing here? He asked, voice hoarse. I held out the envelope. I came to give you the truth. He didn't move. Another one. This one's different. This one sets us free. He took it. Read it. And for a moment I thought he might laugh. Or break something. Instead, he sank onto the couch like the wind had left his body. I don't know what to believe anymore, he said. My whole life I thought I was Charles Dalton's son. I thought I had his eyes, his temper, his failures. I sat beside him. Not too close. Just enough. You believed in the only version of the story you were given. But that's not your fault. He looked at me then, really looked. And what about us? I don't know yet, I admitted. But I know we're not siblings. And I know I never stopped caring about you. He ran a hand through his hair. I want to believe it, Natalie. I want to believe this nightmare is over. But I'm scared. I reached for his hand. He let me take it. Me too. We sat in silence, the rain tapping the windows like old ghosts asking to be let in. Somewhere inside us, something fragile started to mend. It wasn't a dramatic reunion. No rushing into each other's arms. No music swelling behind us like in the movies. It was quieter than that. More fragile, like standing on the ice of a half-frozen lake, testing every step. That night, I didn't stay. I told Ryan I needed time to breathe, to think, to believe this new truth wasn't just another trick of the past. But as I left, he didn't let go of my hand until the very last second. That meant something. Over the next few days, we texted. Nothing poetic, just check-ins, small updates, photos of meals neither of us had the appetite to finish. On the fourth day, I sent him a picture of the first cupcake I'd made since everything fell apart. He replied, not bad. Still missing your frosting. It was the first time I smiled and meant it. A week later, I knocked on the door of the apartment that used to be ours. He opened it immediately. No questions, no hesitation. I made pasta, he said. It's probably terrible, but I figured maybe you'd want to come home. That word. Home. I walked in. The apartment hadn't changed much, but there were new plants on the windowsill. The same thrift store blanket on the couch. My old apron still hung behind the kitchen door. I sat at the counter while he fumbled with Parmesan and cracked jokes about forgetting how to boil water. We didn't talk about what had happened. Not yet. But as we sat across from each other, the distance that had felt miles wide began to shrink inch by inch. After dinner, I showed him the photo of my biological father. Dr. Adam Whitman, I said. He's a surgeon at Greenville Medical. He doesn't know I exist. Not really. Ryan's expression shifted, part sympathy, part curiosity. You want to meet him? I nodded. I think so, but I need to be ready. He leaned forward. Then I'll go with you. When you are. I hesitated. You don't have to. He held my gaze. I want to. The next afternoon, I sat across from a man I had never met but somehow always wondered about. Dr. Whitman was calm, composed, with a deep voice and eyes just like mine. He said he remembered my mother, Helen Carter. Said he never knew she'd had a child. When I told him my name, his eyes glistened. I would have come, he whispered. If I'd known, I would have come. I believed him. He didn't ask for anything, just offered me time, space, a bridge, if I ever wanted to cross it. When I left his office, Ryan was waiting downstairs, leaning against the wall with his arms crossed and a coffee in each hand. You okay? He asked. I nodded, and he didn't press further. Later that week, Sandra reached out to Ryan too. They met at a diner on the edge of town. She told him everything about the affair, the confusion, the lie that grew too heavy to carry. Your real father, she said, is a man named Dr. Eric Langston. Lives in Denver. Never knew about you. Ryan didn't answer her for a long time, just stirred his coffee until the spoon clicked rhythmically against the cup. So I've lived 21 years being someone I'm not? He finally asked. Sandra's eyes welled up. You've always been you, Ryan. That part was never a lie. He told me about it that evening. We sat on the floor, backs against a couch like we used to when our mattress was still propped up on milk crates. I don't know if I want to meet him, he said. I mean, I have a hard enough time trusting my reflection these days. I placed my head on his shoulder. There's no rush. Maybe you never will. Maybe that's okay. I thought I knew who I was, he whispered. Now I'm not sure I even know how to be around you. You don't have to know, I said. You just have to stay, and we'll figure it out. His hand found mine. No shaking this time, just warmth. That weekend, we invited both mothers to dinner. It was tense. Helen wore her best church dress. Sandra brought wine she never touched. They sat stiffly at the table while Ryan and I tried to steer the conversation toward safe topics. Work, weather, a new bakery that opened nearby. But eventually the silence cracked. I don't expect forgiveness, Sandra said quietly, but I want to make space for peace. My mother nodded. We both made choices. Some good, some meant to protect our kids, but ended up hurting them more. She looked at me. I thought keeping the truth from you would shield you. Instead, it just left you unprepared for the truth when it found you anyway. I understand, I said. I'm still angry, but I understand. They didn't hug. Not that night. But something softened between them. The edge dulled. After they left, Ryan turned to me. So what now? I reached up and touched his face. Now we stop surviving and start living. He smiled, slow and full of something old and new at once. Together. Always. 3 weeks passed like a dream we didn't dare name. Not quite real, not quite fiction. Just suspended between memory and possibility. Ryan and I moved slowly, deliberately, like people were learning how to walk after a long fall. Every breakfast, every shared smile, every quiet evening of takeout and worn-out movies was a thread stitched back into something resembling peace. One night, I stood in the kitchen, chopping carrots for soup, when Ryan came and holding a bouquet of chrysanthemums. White, wild, a little unruly. They looked like something you'd grow on a windowsill, he said. I buried my face in the petals. You remembered my favorite. He smiled. You're kind of unforgettable. That night, as we sat on the floor eating dinner by candlelight, I said it out loud. Let's invite them. All of them. Our moms. My father. Your maybe father. Everyone. One dinner. One table. Ryan blinked. You want to put them all in the same room. Yes, I said, because if we don't, the silence will keep talking for us. He paused, then nodded. Okay, let's do it. The guest list wasn't easy. Dr. Whitman agreed immediately, gentle, patient, already easing into his new role as a father with the quiet grace of a man who'd lost time but didn't intend to lose more. Ryan's biological father, Dr. Langston, was harder. He was stunned at first, wary even. But after 2 phone calls and a letter Ryan wrote by hand, 3 full pages and not a single erased word, he agreed to fly in from Denver. I don't know what kind of place I have in your life, he said, but I'd like to sit at your table if there's a seat. So we prepared. The apartment had never seen this much effort. I borrowed extra chairs from a neighbor, ironed cloth napkins for the first time in my life, and dug out my grandmother's ceramic serving platter. Ryan tried to fix the wobbly table leg and nearly broke the entire thing, so we balanced it with an old geometry textbook. That's engineering, he claimed. Creative problem solving. On the night of the dinner, the apartment was lit with candles, the kitchen warm with the smell of rosemary chicken and vanilla custard cooling on the windowsill. Ryan wore the only button-down shirt he owned. I wore a soft blue dress that used to hang untouched in the back of my closet. And then they came. My mom arrived first, carrying a jar of peach preserves and looking more nervous than she had the day she dropped me off at culinary school. You look beautiful, she said, hugging me tight. You look brave. Dr. Whitman followed, tall, composed, hands shaking only a little as he handed me a bouquet of sunflowers. For my daughter, he said softly. Then came Sandra, awkward but determined, holding a plate of deviled eggs like it was a peace offering. She kissed Ryan's cheek and gave me a hug that surprised us both. Last came Dr. Langston, straight from the airport, a small box in hand. Inside was a compass. I kept this from med school, he said to Ryan. I figured maybe it's time to pass it on. We sat, all 7 of us, around one table, one meal. At first, the conversation was safe, small, polite. How's the weather in Denver? How's the new library position, Helen? But then Sandra looked across the table and said, I know I hurt every person in this room, but I'd like to spend the rest of my life trying to repair that. No one spoke right away. Then my mother nodded. I think we all did some breaking, and now we all have to build. Ryan reached under the table and took my hand. He cleared his throat. If it's okay, I'd like to say something. Everyone turned to him. He stood up, visibly nervous, but with the kind of steadiness I'd learned to recognize in him. Earned, not inherited. A year ago, he said, I met a girl in a hallway. She'd just been robbed. She looked like she'd been through hell, but still had the fire to make a home-cooked meal out of a half-stocked fridge. I thought I was helping her, but it turns out she helped me become someone I actually like. His voice trembled. I spent my whole life trying to live up to the image of a man I thought was my father, but now I know who we are isn't about blood. It's about what we choose to carry forward, the kind of people we choose to be, and the kind of love we choose to hold on to. He looked at me then, and I choose you. Tears slipped down my cheeks before I could stop them. I love you, he said, and I want to build a life with you. Messy, complicated, real. All of it. Silence filled the room like warmth. And then applause. Not loud, but genuine. We raised our glasses, lemonade for my mom, wine for the rest, and toasted not to the past, but to everything we had yet to become. 1 month later, I sat alone on a park bench, fingers twisting the strap of my purse, breath catching at every passerby. I was early, half an hour early actually, but it didn't matter. I needed the time. The air was cool, bright with the scent of early spring, and somewhere nearby, a carousel was playing faint music that made the moment feel both too small and too enormous. Today, I was meeting my father again. Not the man I'd imagined for years, a soldier in a photo, a ghost in my mother's stories, but the man who sat across from me 2 weeks ago in a hospital cafe and cried when I said his name, Adam Whitman. I'd said that day, I think I'm your daughter." He hadn't denied it. He hadn't looked away. He'd simply said, "I was wondering when you'd find me." Now he was walking toward me again, a coffee in one hand, a small paper bag in the other. "Croissant," he said, "for courage." I took it, smiling. "You remembered." We sat quietly for a while, watching ducks drift across the pond. "You have your mother's shoulders," he said, "but the rest? I think that's me. Do you regret it?" I asked before I could stop myself. "Not knowing me?" He didn't hesitate. "I regret everything I missed, but I don't regret knowing you now. It wasn't perfect. It didn't erase the years, but it mattered." Meanwhile, Ryan had started writing weekly letters to Dr. Langston. They weren't long. Sometimes just lists, books he was reading, meals he and I cooked, things he fixed around the apartment. But each letter ended with the same line: "I'm still learning who I am, but I'm grateful you're part of that journey now." One night, as we sat on the balcony surrounded by my little jungle of herbs and succulents, Ryan looked at me and said, "You know, it still scares me sometimes. That one wrong move, one buried truth, almost took you from me forever." I turned to him, but it didn't. He smiled, brushing a strand of hair behind my ear. "I'm glad we fought for it, even when we didn't know what we were fighting." The following week, we returned to the lake in Denton, the place where everything had changed. The same trees, the same quiet ripple of water, but it didn't feel haunted anymore. It felt reclaimed, renewed. That afternoon, we signed the lease for a new apartment, just a little bigger, with real floors and windows that didn't leak. My mom helped us move in. She brought old curtains and too many casserole dishes. Sandra sent a housewarming gift from across the state, a waffle iron and a handwritten recipe that said, "For Sunday mornings worth remembering." Dr. Whitman visited once a week. He even came to the school where I was finishing my culinary degree, surprising me during a final presentation with a single sunflower and the worst joke I've ever heard about burnt toast. I introduced him to my professors as my father. The words felt strange on my tongue, but they stuck. Dr. Langston and Ryan eventually met in person, quiet, formal, but steady. They walked for hours around a botanical garden in Denver, and when Ryan came home, he said, "He's not the man I imagined, but he's someone I want to get to know." That was enough. Then, one Sunday morning, Ryan woke me before the sun had fully risen. He took me by the hand and led me to the park where we used to walk before class, where he once dared me to teach him how to make biscuits from scratch and ended up covered in flour. There, under a tree, just beginning to bloom, he knelt. No fanfare, no crowd, just us. "Natalie Carter," he said, "I've loved you as a stranger, as a maybe, as a miracle, and as someone I thought I had to let go. But now I want to love you as my wife. No more confusion, no more silence, just us and the truth we chose." I cried, of course. The ring wasn't flashy, a simple gold band with a tiny, soft green stone. "It reminded me of sage," he said. "You make everything grow." "I do," I whispered, "when you're near." We planned the wedding for late fall, nothing big. Just family, close friends, a table full of home-cooked food and mismatched chairs under the trees. I made my own cake. Ryan built the arch from reclaimed wood. Our mothers walked us down the aisle, side by side. And when I looked into his eyes that day, I didn't see pain or doubt anymore. I saw everything we'd survived, and everything we were building. It wasn't the life I expected, but it was the one we made, together. That night, as we stood in the garden wrapped in string lights and laughter, I leaned my head on Ryan's shoulder and whispered, "We should have broken, you know, with everything." He held me tighter, but we didn't. "No," I said, "we bent. We cracked, but we didn't break." Above us, stars blinked into view like tiny promises, and inside me, for the first time in a long time, was peace. Looking back, I've realized something no one ever teaches you in school. Family isn't just about blood, and love isn't always about fairy tale endings. Sometimes it's about choosing to stay, to ask the hard questions, To listen, even when it hurts. To forgive, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve peace. We were all raised by imperfect people, but that doesn't mean we have to keep repeating their silence, their fear, their lies. We can choose to break the cycle, to speak, to heal, to build something better, even if it takes time, even if it's messy. And most importantly, we can choose love. Not the easy kind, but the kind that grows roots after the storm. That's what saved me. And maybe it will save you too.